Alright guys, welcome back for part 2 of the video. If you haven't seen part 1, in that video we completely have assembled from scratch a dynamic block, which is actually the same block as a Pantera, where you can see how various parts are installed, which gets installed how and what interacts with what and stuff like this. Very useful if you want to do some work on your Pantera or dynamic. If you haven't seen that video, I'll leave the link in the corner of the screen so you can check that one out as well. But just with a block like this we can't do much, and therefore you can see I have a ton of parts on my table that we'll be installing on this dynamic block and therefore creating my new benchrest gun in 30 caliber. I wanted to make it a little bit custom, and therefore I got a little bit of a color scheme going, and the scope I'll be putting on top of my benchrest gun is of course the Element Optics TEOS. I really like this scope, and therefore I painted some parts in more or less the same grayish scheme like the Element Optics TEOS, and I think it will turn out very nicely. So therefore we got a lot of parts to fit to the dynamic block, a lot of work ahead of us, so well, let's waste no time and get started. Right, so here we have the completely naked block that we still have to dress with all our parts. So let's get started on the block itself with some of the smaller details, and the first thing we'll probably put in is that cover plate you see right here. I don't know if you can see very well, this is that cover plate which is normally black, but I have painted it in that grayish scheme that I will be wanting to have my FX dynamic into. So it simply slots nicely into place right there, and it gets held in place with the 2 screws you see right there. The one at the front is a 1.5 millimeter that simply screws down just like this. Make sure it's flush with the body of the block. Like this. And the second one is 2 millimeter, if I'm not mistaken. Right like this. Now this part is fixed into place. I don't know if you can see it very well on camera, the color scheme, it's like a very subtle gray, but you will see with all the other parts that we will be installing. Next part we'll be installing, very important, is that cocking lever, or the cocking handle grip, you can call it however you want it, which simply goes over like this. The screw drops in from the bottom. And just like this, we have our cocking lever, nice subtle gray, perfect. Another item that I will be installing, I first wanted to install the original gauges, and I had some covers painted in more or less the same grayish scheme, but those covers don't really fit over the Sekmeth gauges as they're just a fraction bigger than the original ones. So I abandoned this one for now. Probably I'll print some new ones that I will paint to put over the Sekmeth gauges, but I prefer to have some digital gauges on my benchrest gun to monitor my regulator and all kind of other interesting things. So these simply screw on to the block we have here. And I just always put them hand tight, you don't have to crank down on them. The X-ring at the bottom will do its job. I screw them in, and with my fingers I can feel it engaging with the X-ring at the bottom, and I know if I crank down on them probably it will be even harder to seal. You just have to have that X-ring just a little bit of place so it can expand and fill out all the voids, and so it will seal properly. Then of course we'll also be needing a grip to put on it, and for the grip I have chosen for one from Saber Tactical. It's the AR-15 straight grip. I really like to have a straight grip, especially with this thumb shelf right there, which you can rest your thumb on while you're shooting. So painted it the same as color scheme of all the rest of the parts, of course. So let's go ahead and install it. Let's try to put it in first this way. They have a nice slot here at the back, which you can put your Allen key in to align with the screw. Make sure it's good and tight, like this. A nice silver grip. And then on the other side we'll put the thumb shelf. Which screws into one of these two holes. You can choose which one you want to have it at. Some like it a little bit higher, some like it a little bit lower. And probably it's a good idea to take your Allen keys with you to the range, and once you're shooting, to find out the perfect or the preferred position for that part. Probably when you're shooting, you want to have your thumb rested in a natural way, something like this. So for now I'll put it there, and then at the range I will adjust it if needed. Then I'll be putting on this part. This part is what holds the Arca rail that will fit on it. And therefore we have to mount this block right underneath where your Plenum goes, just like this. Screw the two long bolts inside. You can of course put first your Plenum on and then put that part on. It's either way, like you prefer. But you can fit your Plenum once this part is installed, no problem. Do them up tightly, as these of course carry your rail that comes on top of it. Then, since I want to make it a 30 caliber and I would like to have it as a bench model, I can use all the air I need. So I'm going to use the bottle at the back as the cheek part or buttstock part, and I will add a bottle at the front. In order to have my Arca rail fitted to the block right here, I can just put the traditional original bottle adapter from FX. So I'll need a special one, like what it calls a drop down bottle. And this one is one from Saber Tactical, and it's the FX Pantera drop down front bottle adapter, which we will be installing in this front instead of this brass screw you see right there. So it's as simple as removing that front screw. Just like so. Make sure the O-ring at the bottle is still at the bottom is still in place. Then this part simply goes on like that. And in order to screw it on, you need a 10mm with a little bit of an extension, maybe like this, which can just screw on to that part right there. Make sure you align it, because it has like two grooves that grab around the block right there, and if you twist it, you can see it gets a little bit out of shape or misaligned, let's say like this. Do it up well, don't have to overforce it, as it has enough O-rings inside to seal by itself. Keep your brass screw to the side if you ever want to go back to a normal configuration. Then now, before we continue, let's put the Plenum and the barrel in. Your Plenum, your barrel, and your shroud, of course. Now, I hope I can do this on my table, as a 700mm tends to be a little bit long for my table right here. But the first thing I always like to do is to put my Plenum on there, and then afterwards slide the barrel in and lock it down. Now, before we put that Plenum on, I like to take a little bit of silicone grease, put it on that O-ring so it's nice and lubricated and it can seal very well. Now, this one was still a little bit lubricated, but you can also do this before you put that block on, of course, and then you have full access all around. Also, make sure there is enough lubrication on that inner O-ring that seals on your barrel. Just like so. With that done, we take our plenum and gently screw it on. Pass the O-ring in a twisting motion. Make sure the threads connect nicely, nothing binds. It should go all very easy. Screw it on all the way till it's nice and flush at the back right here. Now you can put it in a vise and tighten it down very good, but I've done this already several times on my Pantera, and just when I do this as hard as I can with my hands, it is good enough and it won't move, especially when it's under pressure. Then the next part is our barrel that has to go in. Same here, some lubrication, because this part here at the front has also some O-rings inside, and you want that barrel to slide in very nice and easily without damaging one of the O-rings that seals that plenum. And also put a little bit on the brass part, just to make everything slide a little bit easier and smoother inside. And then just gently put it in, twist it slightly so you can feel it goes nicely and gently through those O-rings. Then I feel it connect to that silver tube that's right there. Again, twisty motion, gently go through it, and let's see, one O-ring, second O-ring, and then we come to the last one, I believe. There is that barrel. Now on your barrel you have to look for a small divot which marks what the bottom part of your barrel is. I don't know if you can see it very well on camera. There is that small divot. So this we will align to the bottom. Make sure your barrel is flush to the action so your magazine can fit in very well. It's also a good idea to put your magazine in while doing this, but my magazines are upstairs and I won't run after them. I know when it's flush it will mount perfectly. Then to secure the barrel there are two screws. You have one on this side and one on that side. They both lock onto a flat spot on that brass part that you have seen. I've explained it already in another video. I'll also link it in the corner of the screen so you can check that one out as well. So take that screw, start tightening it down just a little bit till you feel some resistance, not too much. I start feeling a little bit of resistance, and then the trick is to twist a little bit with your barrel while you're doing this, so you can find out where exactly that flat spot is, and then do them up equally on both sides. Once that is done and the barrel is secure, we can tighten up that clamp you have right here. Now be very gentle with that clamp. Those screws are actually just there to hold your barrel a little bit, but not too hard. It's not meant to crank down on it. Go equally together on those. Don't crank down on one and then on the other one, because you might have the tendency to split the collar on the other side. So do them up equally, and once they are tight, they are tight. Like this. Then before I put the shroud on, I want to put some barrel weights over the barrel, as weight on a bench rest gun is always a benefit or can help you out. These are the FX dynamic weights. They each weigh about 250 grams, so I have 750 grams right here to put over the barrel. I've tested out this on my Pantera when they just came out, and there is absolutely no harm in it, and it works perfectly. So to put them on, just remove that spacer that we have here at the front, or barrel guiding thing in your tube. Take those weights, slide them over, and as you can see, there is an O-ring falling out of this one. And before, what I was doing, I was sandwiching a O-ring in between them, so I'm sure they were not bumping against each other, but it was also not really necessary. Because those grub screws, they really hold them very nicely into place. Like this. And as you can see, I did put the O-rings back in between them. It's just for my sake, for my peace of mind. I don't know really if it helps or not. Then this part can go back at the front. One thing I must say is that because you're filling up your bit of shroud that you have over the barrel, it does tend to bark a little bit louder, but for that I have a very good solution later on in the video. And so we take our shroud that we just slide over. Also here, make sure your threads connect nicely. And so the shroud goes on. And now let's put our Arca rail on it. It simply slides in between here now. And because of my beautiful paint job, it gets a little bit tighter inside, but that's no harm as it still slides in nicely. Then we have different lengths of screws. You have short one and longer ones. The short one is for the top part. And I always start them up before I tighten them down. And that's like, put it around. And that was the last screw. Arca rail fitted, beautiful. With the Arca rail fitted, there is normally also a top part that goes over it, and that is this one you see right here. This is what sits right on top of this. You can put it on, you can leave it off, it's as you like. I'm gonna put it on mine as it more or less completes the look, gives a nice robust idea and some extra mounting points for some accessories. You need a bunch of screws to get those in, so probably I'll speed up the video installing this. So with that all on, it is time for our bottles. Now I'm planning to use a 580cc bottle right here at the front. This still gives me access to the front part. Try not to make too much noise. This still gives me access here at the front for a Picatinny rail or for a Arca rail to mount my bipod or stuff. I could also go with a smaller bottle for an 80cc and bring it in just a little bit closer, so I have a little bit more room to go back and forward with my Arca rail, but that we will see later on how we do. Now, if I would be screwing on this bottle and there is pressure inside, all the pressure will fly out from the back as this all part is connected. So you will have to screw on both bottles at the same time. Let's see if I can do this on camera in a decent way. That is a 480cc. Now, of course, you can also switch it around if you are should be needed a longer length or pull or something. You can always go, of course, for a 580cc at the back, and then you have a longer length of pull if you're like a big guy or something. For me, the 480 will be just fine at the back. Now, at this point on both bottles, I can feel the valve touching. I know the front bottle has about 200 bar inside. The back one, I don't know exactly. It's lying in my closet as a spare one for quite a while. But let's see if I screw the back one up. You can see the top flies out. So there is still a little bit of pressure in that back one right here. So we'll have to put them on simultaneously. I like to cock the Pantera, and therefore the whole system is charging now. As you can see, I have about 181 bar now in the bottles, and there's about 38 bar in the Plenum reservoir, but that will still have to be adjusted with the regulator after building everything up, of course. Then we need to build up, of course, our butt end. Let's move the Pantera a little bit, or the dynamic a little bit that way. Let's put that dust cover back on. The back part exists out of 3 pieces. Those 2 are also painted in the same color as all the other accessories. This is actually made from some rubber material that fits into the back right here, with a screw that goes through from this side and threads into some threads on that side. That is one part, and this sits in between the plastic cover we have right here, what makes up your cheek weld, and that fits, this carbon fiber tube fits into there, but it seems like I have put my screws already too far inside. This should do it. It slots in together like this and can be screwed up with those 2. Of course, you can play a little bit also with the length of pull this way by pulling it out just a little bit, creating a little bit more of a void between the bottle and the back part, but still creating a little bit more length of pull. That's up to you to decide. So with that part, slide it on and still loose. It is best to turn it upside down, and then you can make sure you align it in the proper orientation so you have a straight length of pull. So I'm eyeballing it now on camera, but you can always readjust it, of course, later on. And once you're happy with the position, simply screw the 4 screws down. Then one last extra thing I want to install are even some more weights, and these are some FX air guns M-lock weights that can be put on the rail and even there on the front. Let me slide it a little bit backwards, just like this. These can be put here at the front, as even those screw holes line up from there, which is very nice. So you can put them straightly on there, or you can use the M-lock connections that come in the bag with it. And that's what I'll be using to put them there on that rail. So, and there you have it guys, my finished FX dynamic bench rest gun in 30 caliber. As you could see, for me it turned out phenomenally, exactly what I have envisioned, matching the color of the rails. I hope the camera does it justice, with the Element Optics TIOS that I have on top of it. Some Sekmeth gauges on the side, a Sabre tactical grip. I also, to quieten it down, have put that brand new Yokozuna from Doni on at the front with that quick release. Very nice. We have two bottles, 480 at the back, 580 at the front, just giving me over a liter of air and probably a ton of shots at the bench as well. Leaving just enough room here at the front to mount my wide stance Accutech bipod, which I really like to use on the bench. We got some FX weights and on the side and underneath the shroud here in front to keep it planted on the bench and eliminate a little bit of that recoil with that 30 caliber. Awesome build, and I hope you like it as well. If you have any comments regarding or any questions regarding the build I've done right here, please leave them in the comment section down below. I'm always answering all the questions you ask there, all the comments you put there, I read them one by one. So please do so if you have any questions. As always, I thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I catch you back in the next one. Bye.